It's 2069. You just sequenced your own DNA on your couch, and there it is, in black and white. You've got the genetic marker for Parkinson's disease. Now, you know a few friends who've attempted to edit their own genome and failed miserably. So you decide to go to an old-fashioned doctor and get a round of Parkinson's vaccines. Vaccines that are developed, of course, from your very own immune system. But you also learn some other things from your DNA sequence. Most of it is fairly standard. You'll start balding around 30. You'll have a tendency to favor savory foods over sugary ones. But there's one thing that does raise a red flag. It's your score on the loneliness index. It's high, life-threateningly high.
We're starting to see healthcare move beyond the four walls of the hospital.
Just go over to your 3D printer and print out the drug that you need.
In 2050, I get customized medications tailored to my molecular genetic makeup.
How will the system bear these costs?
What it has done is it has brought the C word, cure, into the dialogue of cancer.
Welcome to The Future of X, a podcast series from OZY that explores how key industries and domains, from healthcare and music to farming and education, will evolve to shape our world. Plus, we speak to some of the dreamers who are doing the shaping. I'm your host, Carlos Watson, editor-in-chief of OZY. Our first season, in partnership with Providence St. Joseph Health, delves into a subject that touches us all: health. In our first episode, we explore the future of illness and how some of the most pervasive diseases of the future are already here. They just haven't been named as diseases yet. To start, we'll talk with the former Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Vivek Murthy, about a potentially chronic ailment that every one of us has experienced at some point in our lives, and many of us are plagued with right now.
So smoking 15 cigarettes a day will reduce your lifespan to about the same extent that loneliness will.
Then, we're going to learn about the next wave in biotech and how researchers are learning how to hack our immune systems to cure fatal diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's.
The heart of immunotherapy is really learning how to control how your own body recognizes something that is foreign or something that is self.
And finally, we'll look into how all of us will be empowered in the future to diagnose illnesses years before we experience any symptoms, and even to cure ourselves.
Individuals, consumers, will have the ability to take a more active stance in terms of testing for monitoring their own health.
Good morning, Anna. How are you feeling today?
Excuse me?
That's just an old doctor's joke. Of course, I've been tracking your health data since before you were born.
Right.
I saw you were a little tired yesterday.
Yeah, but I'm feeling good. I've been feeling her kick a lot, especially when I eat sushi.
That'll do it. You know, 50 years ago, they used to say that women should avoid mercury when they were pregnant.
Is that true? I was just there.
No, they meant mercury, found in fish. Well, as you may have seen on HealthBook Messenger, your lab work is back.
I did.
Well, the pregnancy is on track. Everything is looking very normal, which is good. We were able to successfully map your child's EWI.
I'm sorry. What is that one again?
The Emotional Well-Being Index.
Oh.
It provides vital information for your child's psychological health.
Oh, okay, right.
You'll notice a fairly significant dip in vector number B5F34, which means your child is predisposed to be lonely.
My father died from loneliness when I was a child.
There really is nothing to worry about. This isn't like loneliness was 25 years ago. There are options. It's like cancer. Totally treatable.
Oh, thank God.
Here, I've got a few sample empathy bots for you to try, and I would recommend perhaps looking into an AI support system before our next visit. The earlier a child is exposed to AI companionship, the less likely they are to suffer from chronic loneliness in the future, and the longer they'll live.
50 years from now, one of the most pervasive medical conditions will be something that every one of us has experienced. It affects millions of people, young and old, at work and at home, and it's linked to everything from arthritis and diabetes to dementia and heart disease. It'll make you 50% more likely to die prematurely. What are we talking about? Loneliness.
This is a new way to karaoke in China. These tiny karaoke booths are popping up all over Beijing. Karaoke fans like their convenience and their privacy.
In China, more than 20,000 karaoke booths built for solo singers have opened in supermarkets and shopping centers. They're restaurants literally designed solely for single patrons, sometimes with screens between tables to avoid the need for eye contact. And things aren't much different in the West.
Open Table says restaurant reservations for one person have grown by 62%.
Another sad truth, according to health insurer Cigna's U.S. Loneliness Index, almost half of Americans feel lonely nearly all of the time. And it's even worse among younger generations. So just how bad for our health is loneliness?
The impact of loneliness is so profound that it can shorten our life to the same extent that cigarettes shorten our life.
This is Dr. Vivek Murthy. Before becoming the 19th U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Murthy practiced internal medicine in Boston, where he says loneliness was the most common illness that he came across.
So smoking 15 cigarettes a day will reduce your lifespan to about the same extent that loneliness will. And when you look at those studies, they also tell you that the impact of loneliness on our lifespan is even greater than that of obesity. Now consider how much effort and time and money we put into addressing tobacco use and obesity in our country compared to how much we invest in addressing loneliness. And there really is no comparison.
Dr. Murthy argues that we are now just waking up to how profound an impact loneliness can have on our health. It could literally take years off your life. It increases our risk of heart disease, dementia, depression, and anxiety. He also explains why we're prone to getting lonely in the first place.
And to understand why loneliness is actually a natural signal, it's worth actually understanding just how we evolved as human beings to be social creatures. Thousands of years ago, when we were largely hunters and gatherers, we relied on each other to make sure we had a stable food supply and also to protect ourselves from predators.
And getting separated from your tribe could be very dangerous.
When we became separated from the group, our body reacted by developing essentially a state of hypervigilance. It entered a stress state. And that was actually very useful back then because if you did not have the protection of your peers, you wanted to be hypervigilant.
These days, however, such hypervigilance can actually be counterproductive.
But the problem is in modern life, when we are lonely and enter that state of hypervigilance, it actually ends up working against us. Because in a state of hypervigilance, then we will tend to overinterpret cues as threats. So somebody may come up to us, for example, and ask us if we want to have lunch together. And we might assume that they're just taking pity on us or that they're mocking us in some way. We may doubt their intentions. That's the kind of thing that happens when we're in a state of hypervigilance.
So is it possible that in the future there could be a cure for loneliness?
Just like we have a lot invested in common illnesses like cancer and diabetes and heart disease, I believe the time has come for us to make similar investments in addressing loneliness, and I hope that that time will come very soon.
And these investments will actually be much more than empathy bots or other kinds of computerized devices that provide emotional support.
Personally, I feel skeptical that we'll be able to devise a robot or any type of AI device that can fully mimic and give you the powerful reward and response that you get from genuine, authentic human connection. And so I think it's still worth investing in people today, and I think that that's going to be true in 10 or 20 years.
Dr. Murthy is a huge proponent of human connection. He argues that in the future, human interaction will be vital to our health, and that future attempts to treat loneliness will not rely on medical advances or new medicines, but instead on finding new ways to bring us together. Even our city streets will be designed to lead us to one another.
I think we'll see cities designed to promote interaction, cities designed, in fact, for people as opposed to just for cars, as they are largely designed now.
Workplace cultures and layouts will also be designed to strengthen the connection between colleagues.
And I also hope that we will see a culture that recognizes that being lonely doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, and instead recognizes that as human beings, we were designed to be interdependent creatures and not to be solely on our own, struggling in isolation. This is what I hope the future will look like.
Now, when it comes to taking care of our physical well-being, researchers are trying to solve the way we diagnose and treat illness as a whole. And it all starts with making medicine highly personal.
Hi, Anna. How's the little one doing?
She's been doing much better. Tico, the AI, has been a lifesaver. Wait, that was an old doctor's joke, wasn't it?
I can't help it. I'm sorry.
Right, of course. So what's up?
Well, Anna, I'm afraid some test results have come back, and I'm sorry to say this, but your mobile phone usage is dangerously high. Have you changed your daily routine at all?
Well, I just got a new job, so yes, that means more screen time.
That'll be it. Well, just please keep an eye on it before it affects something like your blood pressure, Anna, or your serotonin, or your... Worse, I don't like to say the C word, but it may actually eventually affect your credit score, okay?
Thanks, doctor.
Those are the big things to keep an eye on. Oh, one more thing. You've got a little case of breast cancer. Be sure to get plenty of rest this week and see if you can schedule some immunotherapy to get it cleared up nice and quickly.
Got it. At least it's nothing to worry about. Thank you for your help, doctor.
So immunotherapy is all about harnessing the immune system as an effective weapon against cancer.
This is James Heath, a longtime oncology researcher and the president of the Institute of Systems Biology. He's talking about a trailblazing new treatment for cancer in which doctors inject copies of your own immune cells to fight against cancer cells in your body. It's called immunotherapy.
The heart of immunotherapy is really learning how to control how your own body recognizes something that is foreign or something that is self, and doing that in a highly specific fashion. And so when immunotherapy works, it's actually pretty remarkable.
The potential implication of immunotherapy for future treatment is also remarkable.
What it has done is it has brought, I think for the first time since basically surgery, the C word, cure, into the dialogue of cancer. We're not there yet, but there's almost a beeline pathway forwards for at least a number of cancers.
So how might immunotherapy affect how we are cured in the future? Here's one scenario for how it could play out. If you have cancer in 50 years, first you'll get a simple biopsy at the doctor's office. Then that same office will sequence both your genes and the genes found in your cancerous tumor. And finally, a 100% customized injection will end up being created just for you and delivered over 3 outpatient visits. Believe it or not, though, this type of customized treatment is already being done today.
I think it had been maybe 10 days since I'd gotten the cells, and I could already feel that tumor starting to get soft, and I said, oh, it's working. By then, I was like, dang, this is really working.
Judy Perkins, a retired engineer from Florida, was diagnosed with aggressive metastatic breast cancer a few years ago. But after being treated with immunotherapy, in which doctors injected copies of her own immune cells to fight the cancer cells, it was announced that her cancer had been virtually eradicated. Cases like Judy Perkins are still unusual, however. An analysis found that of all the cancer patients with an FDA-approved immunotherapy treatment, fewer than 1 in 10 would actually benefit from receiving immunotherapy. And that, by the way, is assuming they can afford the drugs. Right now, one immunotherapy injection can cost up to $10,000. Still, biotech firms, hospitals, and universities all over the world are continuing to research and improve immunotherapy every single day. Among other things, researchers are developing vaccines that use the body's own immune system to attack and destroy cancer cells. Some experts believe that within 50 years, many forms of cancer will have effectively been turned into chronic diseases, meaning they'll still require treatment, but cancer will no longer be a death sentence. Here's James Heath again.
You can begin to see that kind of thing happen right now. And I think that's for sure the future, making it into a chronic and livable disease, somewhat like happened to HIV over the past couple of decades.
And it's not just cancer that might be treatable. In 50 years, immunotherapy will be used to treat anything that causes inflammation in the body. Clinical trials are now investigating the effects of immunotherapies on Alzheimer's disease, obesity, stroke, heart attacks, hepatitis C, Crohn's disease, and more. Immunotherapy is just one form of the future of personalized medicine. Instead of focusing on developing a magic bullet cure for everyone who suffers from the same chronic illness or disease, like cancer, researchers are starting to take a more individualized approach to care. In the future, wellness, as in making sure we take the necessary steps to prevent illness in the first place, will also become much more targeted. There may well come a time when each of us will have our very own data cloud that can be analyzed to optimize our health.
I think it's going to be absolutely essential for most people that data are analyzed.
This is Lee Hood, the Chief Science Officer at Providence St. Joseph Health.
And I think we'll develop very, very powerful computational tools using artificial intelligence of the type of expert systems analysis. And the idea would be that you could have a platform into which you could feed all of the data cloud data for each individual, and from that platform would come a list of all the actionable possibilities that one can use to improve their health.
Along with assessing our own data clouds in the future, we may also be able to arm ourselves with vital information by testing our own DNA. When James Crawford was 24, his psychiatrist prescribed him antidepressants, but they didn't work. For the next 20 years, he tried different variations of antidepressant medication, but his symptoms never improved.
James Crawford tried everything from therapy to a variety of antidepressants.
Medications that felt incredibly ineffective, but they kept the lows from being inescapable, but it also kept the highs from existing at all.
He contemplated suicide often, tracing his depression back to age 9. He thought that was how life would be forever.
Then, in 2014, a new psychiatrist suggested that James take a genetic test to better understand his depression. The results were shocking. James discovered he has a genetic variant, which meant that antidepressants would never help with this condition. Instead, he needed to be on a mood stabilizer and anti-seizure medication. Since getting the right treatment, James, as he describes it, no longer feels like he's drowning.
You hear about people getting a brand new life. I'm 45. I started this process 2 years ago. I have a brand new life.
And James never would have discovered this without the personalization of genetic testing. Knowing what's inside of your body right now could mean staving off a host of diseases later on in life. In the future, genetic testing, together with a comprehensive analysis of our blood, urine, and vital signs, will allow computers to tell us exactly what we should be eating and how much exercise and sleep we need to prevent disease. We'll know exactly which diseases we're at risk for and which medications we need to prevent them. This is a powerful tool.
Individuals, consumers, will have the ability to take a more active stance in terms of testing for monitoring their own health.
This is Bertram Kolsch, the manager and senior product scientist at the biotech company 23andMe.
And play an equal role with the healthcare system as opposed to being told what to do when the healthcare system says it's appropriate.
We're not there yet, but hospitals and biotech companies are already well on their way to making personalized medicine the standard in healthcare. This is James Heath again.
We know that everybody's different. Everybody responds to pathogens differently, they respond to infections, etc. And so as we learn more and more about how to harness the immune system as a disease-fighting weapon, we'll learn how to personalize it for those responses you see from patient to patient.
According to Kolsch, 23andMe is taking this idea of analyzing your immune system one step further by letting users test their genes at home. Now, when combined with other medical advances, the possibilities of such personalized testing are astounding. For example, if you have a high risk for cancer, not only will this information help with early detection, it could also indicate whether you need a cancer vaccine. Now, cancer vaccines are already becoming increasingly available, like the HPV vaccine for cervical cancer, but more are entering the clinic every day. However, responses can vary substantially from patient to patient. Personalized medicine is not without its risk. For one thing, it means that data on your personal genetic sequence will be uploaded to the cloud. Forget about identity theft. Should we be worried about DNA theft? This is Lee Hood again.
With any kind of big data, there's always the question, can someone come in and capture it and crunch it? And we see it with financial data and registration data all the time.
Still, Hood says the immense opportunities afforded to us through genetic testing and personalized medicine are actually worth the risk. As he sees it, tech and policy will just have to keep up.
I think there's one overwhelming issue that we do have to worry about, and that is the issue of discrimination. Genetic discrimination, for example. If it's known you have a tendency toward certain kinds of diseases, we have to make sure that there are laws that prevent your insurance company, your employer, or even your family from discriminating against you.
Okay, we've heard today about everything from the future of loneliness to the power of immunotherapy to how personalized medicine could empower us to treat ourselves one day. These evolutions in how we identify and treat illnesses may not all become reality, of course. Individual responses to treatment still vary massively, and there may be setbacks in coming years from the world of science, policy, or politics. People's nervousness about change can also affect progress. But let's imagine how all of this might play out for you or a loved one in the future, say 50 years from now. Let's go back to the scenario from the start. It's 2069 and you just sequenced your own DNA at home. And there it is. Your loneliness score is dangerously high. Well versed in the long-term effects this can cause, you start to worry. So what do? You put down the results of your DNA test and you pick up the phone to call a friend, a human friend. I'm your host, Carlos Watson. Thank you for joining us on The Future of X. This series is a partnership between OZY and Providence St. Joseph Health. Check out episode 2, where we'll talk about how we're going to pay for all these incredible futuristic medical breakthroughs and who will be administering the care. Here's a hint. Hospitals will be obsolete, and we may all be on our way to becoming DIY doctors. That's next time on The Future of X, Health. The Future of X is produced by OZY in partnership with Providence St. Joseph Health. I'm your host, Carlos Watson. Leah Rose is our producer. Molly Fosco and Sean Braswell are the editorial producers. The show was edited and mixed by Chris Kim. Rob Kulos is our executive producer, and Faye Schlesinger serves as managing editor. For more on The Future of X, go to ozy.com/future. That's ozy.com/future.